to hear about that with Lori Pantel. She is the Chief Marketing Officer for Fandango, and she directs all the brand marketing strategies across the company's e-commerce and editorial content portfolio. So welcome, Lori. Thank you for coming.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, we're glad to. I mean, it's such an incredible time for you right now. So really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us what you've been going through.
Well, I appreciate it. And I love that first question that you asked everybody, because I think...
I don't want you to answer yet. I'm going to stop you there because I want to see what they said in chat, and let's see what they came up with. All right. Well, find movie times, trailers, movie info, and buy tickets. Streaming via Roku. And we got one person to say bingo. So, okay. So, Lori, now I want to hear from you. How did they do?
No, they did really well. I think what's fascinating is when I first joined, I joined about 2 years ago, I would have answered movie tickets because that is kind of the general and the most common understanding of Fandango. But what's fascinating, and I think you guys did a really good job, Fandango, you know, we like to define it as the ultimate digital network for all things movie and TV. It's truly a portfolio. And so obviously we sell movie tickets. So good for everyone who got that. And thank you for your service to Fandango for those who use us. I love the streaming on Roku. So that's one that many people don't know with Fandango now. So we've had, a TVOD service basically where you can buy and rent movies, which has been incredibly helpful, especially in this COVID era. I see reviews. So Rotten Tomatoes is another part of our portfolio. And we like to think of Rotten Tomatoes as that helpful resource to help consumers figure out what they want to watch and what's good for them. So either the tomato meter scores or audience scores or reviews that people use to make those decisions. What I didn't see here is we've got an entire rewards business. And so we've got a B2B business where we work with CPGs and many other companies where we offer movie tickets or streaming rentals as a reward or as part of a promotional package. And then movie clips, which I'm trying to look at all the answers. I don't see movie trailers, but we manage the #1 movie trailer channel on YouTube. And so we truly do support the whole ecosystem of entertainment. You guys, I'd give you guys a B+. That was really good. Most people usually get ticketing. So I like this crowd. You guys are my people.
Yeah, no kidding. So they really are familiar with it. And I mean, obviously so much of it is based on movies and movie releases. And so let's talk actually before COVID hit. What was really the standard operating procedure for you in terms of, you know, who were you reaching out to? What was your media plan like? Tell me about that a little bit. What was your target?
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the day, our target was movie entertainment fans. And so, you know, if I think about our two kind of commerce businesses, so we think of ticketing, so theatrical. So a lot of our media mix really focused on the movie-going consumers who are going to theaters. And we also balance that with our in-home. So obviously, as new movies come to theaters within, you know, 3 to 4 months, they end up coming into the home at window. And that's another chance for us to support and serve our consumers. And what we kind of have leveraged all throughout the history of Fandango is really leveraging the relationship we have with our consumers. We've got a pretty powerful and robust CRM program, which we like to say for those on the phone who are CRM experts, it's where we balance heart and commerce. It's really where we maintain that relationship with our consumer. And now with great data and insights, we're able to really customize. So our CRM was a big part and has always been a big part of how we serve our consumers. I loved the survey of where people were putting their media, obviously Facebook, Instagram, you know, our Google and search. We do work with affiliates. So I love that comment before about kind of this underutilized, but it has been something that we've leveraged within our media mix. And we tended to just, you know, run the life cycle. So depending where a consumer was, we were capturing them, whether they were looking at, you know, a new trailer. So 6 months out, they'd come to movie clips. But we really thought about the life cycle. We were serving the consumers, whether they were, you know, in the early awareness phase, capturing that kind of hand raise in our minds. And then as it got closer to either in theater or in home, we would then serve them with a more commerce related message.
Well, and I mean, as far as you really had to listen to consumers with this when the crisis was happening and their behaviors were changing, obviously, and there was, as I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit of a restructuring. And I know that you talked about what the biggest difference is in terms of what you guys have been going through. Can you explain that a little bit to us?
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, there was multiple things that happened as part of COVID. The first and the most jarring was, you can imagine, one of our verticals went to zero within 3 or 4 days. I mean, within, I think between March 13th and 17th, all theaters closed. And so, and we were all shutting down. And so I think the first jarring thing was, as a company, what do we do and how do we kind of manage through what was going to be a very different business? And I think at that moment we were dealing with anxiety and concern for our exhibitor partners. Obviously, we knew that this was going to be devastating for our exhibitor partners. And so we were trying to be very thoughtful about supporting them and making sure that we were continuing to be a resource, letting consumers know what was changing. But at the same time, we were quite grateful that we had a portfolio. And we knew that at that moment, consumers were locked down and had, were in their homes. We all were. And so we felt that in that split moment, we thought about how can our portfolio or how can our brands be a resource, be helpful to the consumer. And I think there was multiple things that we were able to do. One, for the first time, we had our email, for a week, we had all of our email go quiet. We felt that in that first week, when consumers were worried about their safety, were worried about toilet paper, were worried about food, we didn't feel that it was appropriate for us to be pushing or selling anything. So all of our paid and all of our social went very quiet for that first week. And we felt that it was really important. And I think this was the first time in a long time that all channels went silent for that period of time. And I think that was a moment where we all felt that this was larger than our businesses. This was a human moment. And then once we came back, we realized that our first communication back to the consumers couldn't be about go rent. There was these in-theater films that for the first time became available in the home. And so our first communication from a CRM had nothing to do with movies or what you can rent. It was a heartfelt letter to our consumers, empathizing what they were going through. Sort of setting up for them the way in which we were going to be a resource for them. So we were going to make sure that for those who needed to know what was going on within entertainment, we would maintain and continue to tell them any entertainment news, movie slates changing, theaters closing. We wanted to be a resource. We also wanted to let them know that in the coming days and weeks, we will continue to be a resource to help them find and figure out what they can do to fill their time. So Rotten Tomatoes, for example, we have tremendous amount of lists and editorial that was going to help people figure out what to watch. You can imagine we all got home, we have streaming services, we have AVOD, there was overwhelming. And so we said, can we help people, guide them and provide content that they could figure out what to watch? And then following that moment, all of our channels, so we obviously had a CRM and all of our lists for ticketing. We then had a separate email communication for our in-home streaming consumers. Our entire ticketing platform, within 3 or 4 days, we created like an affiliate to our in-home. So anybody who came to Fandango, because they're used to going to the Fandango app, which I'm sure many of you do, to see what's playing, what's new, we were able to highlight in-home films. We took our email channel, which we were a little bit nervous about, to be honest, to take our Fandango ticketing audience and introduced in-home content, which in the past they hadn't been responsive to on the Fandango channel. What was amazing is we had high engagement and really strong click-throughs and interest in the content and the editorial. And that said to us that consumers in that moment needed it and were hungry for that information. And so we basically pivoted all of our business and our focus into the in-home movie window strategy. And what was also new for all of us is there were many films like Trolls, like Scooby-Doo, that were scheduled to go in theaters, and studios made the very quick decision to deliver them in the home, so that way consumers and families alike would have entertainment. I can tell you as a mom of 2 kids, when Trolls and Scooby-Doo came out, I was like a hero that night. I mean, it had been weeks when there was nothing going on. And so I think-
Now, but I'm not to interrupt, but when this was happening, theaters were nervous about this kind of decision. And the theaters are your partners, and it was that difficult to then come and support, because again, you're that resource. And right now, this is what's needing to be done is, that people are at home and this is what's happening with the studios and that's where they're releasing it. How did you how were you able to kind of follow that without alienating, the people who are really your partners and have been your partners?
Yeah, well, I think a few things. One is all theaters were shut down. So there was no choice. We weren't, we didn't make the decision. Studios make the decision for the windowing strategies, right? At the end of the day, we are we have great partners from B2B, but we're also a brand, a direct-to-consumer brand. And so I think our exhibitor partners recognized that this wasn't something that we chose or that we were making the choice. One, theaters were closed. Two, we also felt, just like the studios felt, that this was a very difficult time for all of us in this country, and that entertainment has always been a resource for giving us a little bit of a break from reality. And so I think we communicated with all of our theatrical partners. They were well aware that this was going on. They knew that we would support it because of our business. And I think as we've gone through, and for those who are Fandango consumers, we continue to be committed to our theatrical partners. Since COVID's happened, we are anxiously awaiting for exhibition to open. We've been working for the past 6 weeks with our exhibition partners to make changes to our ticketing product, right? We can imagine as we're getting ready to go back to theaters, we are investing on ensuring that when theaters reopen and when consumers are ready to go back, that when you log on to Fandango, it's not going to look the same because the world isn't the same, right? So whether that be ensuring that we are communicating all of the safety procedures of all of our exhibitor partners front and center, whether we're helping consumers understand what theaters are open where, what policies are available where. The biggest concern we've heard from consumers as our exhibitor partners have when we go back to theaters, how is social distancing going to work? We are changing our product and our seating maps to make sure we're leveraging that. So we continue to invest behind exhibition. We continue to stand behind our exhibition partners. But at the end of the day, Fandango also is there to serve consumers with their entertainment needs, wherever they need it, in the theater and in the home.
Yeah, and you talked to me when we spoke earlier that now you are more almost taking two businesses into one and being able to sort of communicate this message. Do you see that continuing? I mean, right now, obviously, it's still not, we don't know where we're going, but as we hopefully eventually, get back to normal, is this something that you think is a business model that now will be a part of what you guys are all about?
Yeah, I think what this has done, I would say that if you sit in the walls of Fandango, we've always thought of ourselves as a portfolio of entertainment and servicing consumers with a variety of brands. I think that, and many of you, by evidence, by your answers, we haven't necessarily been outward or have demonstrated the link between all the businesses. And there's been a variety of reasons for that, right? And we can go into that, but there's business reasons why we haven't. We've got, exhibition and studio partners. We're always trying to make sure that we're being respectful. I think what COVID has done for all of us, and none of us will know exactly, but it has in some cases expedited, changed the conversation. It has given us an opportunity where consumers have been more open to experimenting and exploring. Our ticketing customers have experimented and explored with our home end, which has been, exciting for us and something we've always aspired to. So I think as this goes on, as none of us know exactly what's going to happen, I do think that we will continue to, message, mix our brands a little bit more than maybe we have otherwise. And I think that has been, if we can say one of the positives, which I think in most darkness, we always say there's always a positive light. I think it's given us an opportunity. It's given our audience a chance to be introduced again to some of the Fandango properties. And hopefully our biggest hope is that we've been a resource, right? That's always we've ever wanted to be, is we want to be a resource, whether you never buy a ticket with us, but you love Rotten Tomatoes, great. If you are bored and want to go to movie clips and watch any movie clip, we're glad that we're there to be a resource and be helpful. We like to say that our mission is to usher consumers to the most moving entertainment experiences. And so all of our brands are there. Usher, as many of you can imagine, is a very interesting word. It's passive, but helpful. And that's how we see ourselves. For consumers who are savvy and who want to be able to navigate, great. Others may need a little more help along the way. And that's where our brands and our different brands within our portfolio can help them in their movie going or TV going experience.
Well, it seems like you guys also, you're taking on news, you know, I mean, in terms of you're not just giving them, okay, this is the movie you can go to, or this is what's happening in entertainment, but you're following what's happening now and responding to that and giving them the news updates. And is that something that, I mean, obviously it was a natural transition in this particular case, but are you finding that that's become very valuable to your customers?
Well, we've actually always been, from an entertainment news, we've always, through Rotten Tomatoes and Fandango Editorial, have always been, sorry, you probably hear a fire station going by, or a fire truck. We've always been there. And in entertainment news and all of our Rotten Tomatoes content has been there to talk about, you know, news stories. I think right now, it may be where consumers who may not otherwise have been engaging in those platforms, maybe because they're looking for new information, new angles. And I think the beauty of what Fandango and Rotten Tomatoes specifically have done from editorial and content is we've got great relationships in the industry. And we've always had a slightly different point of view as we're telling the same stories. You can go onto Access Hollywood or E! News or IMDb. There's many resources out there that are sharing entertainment stories. We've always tried to have a slightly different angle so that way consumers and our audience know what to expect from Rotten Tomatoes and Fandango.
And I mean, as you sort of talked about a little bit with Fandango now, I mean, this gave you an opportunity to really be seen and to really tell me the difference in terms of numbers, what's been happening since COVID and how much response you have now to Fandango now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we've had a chance, I mean, we've had a chance to focus investment, right? And so, you know, I think the beauty of when there's been new content, so Trolls and Scoob, we've invested behind it and we've seen our share increase, which has been good for us. It's been exciting to see that people are responding. And so I think that will continue as we've brought on new consumers to Fandango now. So there's obviously been loyal consumers who, whenever they're wanting to transact, either rent or buy a movie, have been a Fandango Now customer. What this has offered us a chance to do is bring in new consumers at a very efficient cost, to be honest, given our Fandango pipeline. And so we've had a lot of Fandango consumers for the first time transact and explore Fandango Now. And so we hope that when they are looking for their next rental or purchase, that they choose us again. Our goal right now is that retention and really making sure we're learning and understanding that theatrical consumer, and if they want to choose Fandango Now, how to make sure that we're serving up the right content, the right films at that right moment, to ensure that we kind of maintain that new growth.
And well, I think another thing, aside from Fandango Now, which is during the pandemic, obviously a lot of companies, they kind of were trying to keep status quo, but you guys actually went and bought another branch, Voodoo. So tell me about that. I mean, what had it been in the works? Was this a difficult undertaking or?
Yeah, so this was Voodoo. The plan to acquire Voodoo was in the works pre-COVID. And this was, again, in the spirit of thinking about our ecosystem, thinking about our network. Voodoo, for those who may or may not know, was Walmart's TVOD service. They're, I think top 3 in terms of the market. So a really major player in the TVOD space. They've been, leaders in technology, leaders in innovation. And we were super excited that we felt it was the right moment to shore up our TVOD business. Obviously, post-COVID, it's even more exciting given the in-home. So that happened. And to be honest, I don't know how many people have integrated in a post-COVID world. We're all doing this virtually. There are teams, they're up in San Francisco. So I think, on the one hand, this was an amazing undertaking, but it does speak to some of the values. So our CEO, one of the big values of our company is what if, and this concept of, let's always challenge status quo. And so I think this is another example of the culture at Fandango. It was a really smart business move. And I think now, like many of us, are figuring out how to do our businesses virtually. We've shifted a platform from ticketing to home end. We've, acquired a company. And so I'm super proud, and I'm sure many of you are feeling that with your companies. We're really proud of our colleagues and our businesses at the resilience and the commitment to really doing our best, even though we're under challenging circumstances. And I'm super excited to see the combination of Fandango Now and Voodoo being a really strong player in the in-home windowing. And I think it'll provide even greater opportunity, greater scale to really drive and grow our market share.
Yeah, and before I want to open it up so everyone can ask questions, but just one final question in terms of, I mean, you had talked synergy and now you have all of this, as I said, hopefully we're moving out of this crisis moment and we're going to have a new business as usual. What do you see that in terms of all of these things coming together? How do you see yourself, you know, in terms of promoting yourself and moving forward as a company and being, you know, like all working with each other, all the different areas that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think the opportunity has always been, I think now even more heightened, to really think about how we, and as the head of marketing, I'm sure many of you are marketers, I always think about how do we ensure we're packaging and messaging the enterprise to the consumers, right? And I think we're now going to be in a position to be able to message a little differently. And I think about the value prop that if you are a Fandango consumer, all the ways in which we can support your entertainment, movie-going, you know, habits. At the end of the day, I think if we continue to focus on the consumer, which that's my job and my team's job, is really make sure that we're serving the consumer, making sure that we are there for them at any point in their movie-going experience. And if we do it really well, and I think personalization, we can talk all about the ways in which we really make sure that we're serving up that right message at the right time. I think we'll have great opportunity for growth as we come out of COVID. I'm excited that we're well positioned to serve that consumer. When theaters open, we're so excited, and consumers will go back to theaters. They will. That's an experience that cannot be replicated in the home. We'll be there to make sure that we are standing alongside our exhibitor partners, ensuring that we are giving our consumers and our exhibitor consumers, you know, confidence to go back. For consumers who want to watch in the home, we feel very confident that we've got the right content to serve them. And I think I'm excited for what the future holds for our company and our industry.
Yeah, no, well, Steve, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we do. We have one from Jim from UPS. Jim, can you get, there you are. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks. Wonderful presentation, Lori. My question really pertains to the Fandango site and its many brands with its intent to kind of represent the mass consumer. One of the challenges that I suspect you encounter is, given that you're owned by Comcast and NBC Universal, how do you ensure an unbiased perspective?
That's a great question. We are given and run at arm's length from Comcast. So think about Rotten Tomatoes, right? As a business, Rotten Tomatoes is a platform about debate, discussion between critics. We are studio agnostic, and and Comcast does not kind of interfere with that. So for example, you can imagine a Universal movie that may be rotten. You know, we get calls from Disney, from Warner Brothers, everybody may call us if they're not happy with that, but we remain very independent. You know, it's been our office, for example, we are not located on the NBC Universal lot, we're separate. And so we've managed to maintain, and I think part of the acquisition years ago for NBC Universal was they appreciated the digital footprint we had, but in order for us to be successful, and in order for us to thrive and grow, we had to remain independent.
We also have a question from Jeff Alderman. Jeff, I just activated you. Go ahead and ask.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Lori, so just a question for you, actually two parts. So one is, if resources really wasn't an issue, what's one thing that you would have kind of done differently over the past 4 months? And the other question is what's really kind of your big bet for obviously fall and holiday 2020, because that's usually a pretty big spike for your business.
Yeah, those are two tough questions right now. So in the first one, if resources weren't, I'll be honest, I don't know if we would have done anything differently. I think we invested appropriately behind our home end. Obviously, you know, we couldn't change the fact that theaters were closed. So I think we were smart. I think one of the things I would have maybe done a little differently if we had a little more dollars to spend was maybe test a little more. I mean, I think many of you talked about this, right? One of the benefits of COVID, right or wrong, is CPMs were low. And so we took advantage of it also. And I think we leaned in, and we've been doing testing on new platforms. So to sort of gauge when we're ready to come back out, are there new platforms we can continue to diversify our media mix? So that I would have done a little more of. I'll be honest, the big bet holiday traditionally is a big theatrical. And so we're all sitting here, we don't know. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't make the decisions between the exhibitors and the studios. And so right now, as many of you, we're taking it week by week, day by day. I mean, we are pivoting as we see fit. At any moment, exhibition can open and we're ready for it. So while I'd like to say we're locked and loaded for Q4, we're not. I mean, we're waiting to see what happens. Our goal is to continue to serve our consumer as new content rolls out. And there are a couple of new PVOD, which is premium video demand movies coming. Bill and Ted's was announced. And so we'll continue to partner with the studios and ensure that consumers have access to that content. But we don't have a master plan in Q4 yet until we really can understand what studios are doing, which I know is not a very exciting answer, but that's the truth.
One we hear a lot of.
And I think that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much, Lori.
That's great.
Well, Lisa,
thank you so much.
thank you guys for your time, and I look forward to learning more about kind of the different conversations over the course of the day. So thank you so much.
Thank you.